Are you looking to create more inclusive and equitable classroom management practices? Watch this video where I share strategies to transform your classroom expectations so that your learners feel seen, respected, and intrinsically motivated to adhere to classroom policies and procedures. For the best insights, support, and strategies for teaching social studies, subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to be notified when a new video drops every Sunday. Have you ever had a classroom mutiny because your students considered your classroom policies or consequences unfair? How do we place firm expectations in place while creating an inclusive classroom? That is exactly what I'll be answering for you today in this video. By the end of this video, you will know 5 important characteristics of an inclusive management system and how to make it work for your classroom. If you're new to this channel, hi, I'm Cecilia Tamez, and I have been an educator for over a decade. And for the past 5 years, I've helped fellow history teachers by offering support, resources, and solutions to help them be effective educators and avoid teacher burnout. If you're a new history teacher that could benefit from the support and the insight of a helpful and nurturing teacher community, I invite you to join my free Facebook group, the History Teachers Lounge, by clicking the link below. If you're looking for more personalized one-on-one support, as well as other materials and resources for your social studies classroom, make sure to visit Teach Like an Influencer at the link below to see all the resources and solutions that I offer dedicated social studies teachers like you. Now, this is not your average video on classroom management. Most educators have a pretty solid grasp on creating classroom policies and procedures. This video is more of a self-evaluation and making sure that your classroom policies, your procedures, your rewards, your consequences are intentionally equitable and inclusive. Now, one thing that I want you to keep in mind that's very important is that when students are active co-creators of the classroom management system, they will feel seen, respected, and they're more likely to adhere to the classroom policies and guidelines. Now, this may sound completely odd. First thing that you want to do if you're going to transform your classroom into a more inclusive space, if you are going to make your management system equitable and fair, is you are going to determine and make up your mind that you are going to love the crap out of your students. Now, I know most of us know that our students need attention, affection, they want to feel like they matter. We know this, but to conscientiously make the decision that the more challenging the class is, the more you will focus on loving them through their faults, that is a very difficult challenge, even for the most expert and seasoned educator. And I gotta tell you that I learned this lesson a couple years back. And, you know, oftentimes it's so easy to just resort to the thought that our students are purposely pushing our buttons on purpose. And the truth is, some of these more challenging classes are literally screaming for your attention. They are screaming to be cared about. They are screaming to feel some shred of value, of esteem, of respect from someone. And we need to make a conscientious effort to focus our attention on those specific classes. So I want you to make this a mantra. The harder my class is to love, the more emphasis and the more I will determine and I will will myself to love that class, because that's the class that's telling me in a nonverbal way that they need that love. By approaching the situation with this mindset, you are totally throwing a really unsuspected curveball to your class, because maybe they've had the experience and they've been taught that, you know, I'm gonna misbehave and, you know, I'll make them pay attention to me, right? And I'll finally be important because I'll be in and out of offices all the time, and, you know, I'll be a frequent flyer, and at least I'll have the attention and the respect of my peers, and someone will care about me because I'm a total baddie, right? But when you approach your class with this mindset of, listen, I know you're screwing up and I'm still gonna love you. I mean, how is that not disarming? So our own mindset as the educator is just so invaluable. We got to get that on fleek first, because if we don't modify that mindset, if we don't get our mind in the right place, how could we possibly transfer that energy of care and love and firm affection for our students in a way that you know that they're messing up, and they'll know that you know that they're messing up, you still love them anyway, that is going to change the game for your classroom. So get your mindset determined to make that commitment first, and you will see this transformation take place in your class. Now, when you're creating classroom guidelines and procedures, typically we just read the rules the first day of school and, blah, 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 let's crack open the book and get stuff done. Maybe if you are very invested in your class, you might spend, a couple days, maybe even the first week of school, going over policies and procedures, and we say what they are, what our policies and procedures are, but how many of us actually take the time to explain and model and practice how you want those procedures and guidelines carried out? We all have a way that we want things to be done. We're very particular about that, particularly us teachers, right? Sometimes we want things done a certain way, which is why sometimes you'll see in the lower grade levels, your students will ask you, like, do you want me to write my name at the top of my paper on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side? And to us, we're just like, seriously, you're asking me that question? But the truth is, look, your students do want to please you, but if you don't give them a how-to, and if you don't model how you want this done, they're going to find creative ways to figure it out. If you don't tell them, walk into the classroom, or let me model this for you, let me show you, they will nosedive into your class like 0.0005 seconds before the bell rings. Can I get an amen? Now, another practice you may want to consider is actually something that many educators would consider to be counterintuitive, and that is actually sharing your pet peeves with your class. Now, a lot of teachers are concerned about this because, their first reaction to me is like, oh, great. So they know my pet peeves. Now they know, which toe to step on. And the truth is, if you ever had an experience growing up where a teacher might have been mad at you for absolutely no reason that you knew of, the same is true for our students. And I feel like making them aware of your pet peeves is additional information that they need in order to please you, because they do want to please you, they do want to follow guidelines and procedures, and what they need is additional information in order to carry this out. Now, when it comes to sharing your pet peeves, you also want to be very mindful. And again, this is where adjusting our own mindset is a priority when it comes to creating an inclusive and a fair classroom management system. You want to make sure that these things are not going to trigger you. Sharing your pet peeves and actually having them happen in class are not going to trigger you. Because if your students see that even though you made them aware that this is something it frustrates you, if they see that you are modeling that self-control, then you are modeling some social emotional intelligence for your class. This is one of the most difficult and challenging things for teachers to master. But if they can do it, if you can master self-control, you are solid gold. Now, the value from rules to rules are subjective. That means that something that you may consider valuable may not seem valuable or useful to your students. So, as I mentioned earlier in the video, you want to make sure that your students are collaborators in creating guidelines and expectations, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the video. But I'm going to dish out some tough love from a place of respect and from a place of care. Don't make dumb rules. You want to make sure that the rules and the guidelines that you are selecting for your class are absolutely non-negotiables. That means that if this is actually happening in your class, class cannot go on. Now, as I mentioned before, yes, it's subjective. To me, for example, not having a pencil, it's not the end of the world, right? Not coming to class with their materials, it's annoying, but it's not the end of the world. If I have a child in front of me, I will teach that child, and we will work out the material situation some other way, whether it be by loaning out a pencil, giving them an extra copy. I understand that responsibility is important, which is what leads me to my next point. Keep your students' needs in mind. If you know your class and you know them well, and maybe you know them well enough to know that you have some economically disadvantaged students in your class, please don't make rules about not having all 15 of your materials. That would be an inequitable rule for your students. That's what we need to be intentional with. You want to make sure that you are not creating rules that your students are not equipped to handle, whether that be emotionally, physically, or in this case, economically. Now, I want to make very clear, this is not about coddling our students, because we want to teach them responsibility. This is about providing alternatives for those students to meet those same expectations in an alternative way. You want to make sure that even for meeting your expectations, you scaffold for your students. Now, since we've been talking about pet peeves and providing our students with additional information, comment below and let me know what is one of your teacher pet peeves. Let me know, and don't forget to share with your class. Know your students. I can't stress this one enough. We as teachers have absolutely no business creating rules for a classroom of children that we don't know. And I'm telling you this because it will save you so many headaches, so many misunderstandings, so much stress if you take the time to get to know your students before you create classroom expectations and policies and procedures, so that your students can actually meet those expectations. And also, that also prevents us from jumping to conclusions when our students keep breaking the rules, quote unquote. And in reality, it may just be that they are not emotionally, psychologically, physically equipped to meet this expectation. Getting to know our student allows us to eliminate the possibility that our students are just plain insubordinate and just, case closed, and that's an easy scapegoat, and that's just how they are. When we know our students' limitations, our areas of need, our students' interests, their dreams, their extracurricular activity, the things that they value, what they like, what they don't like in teachers, what pronouns they want us to use for them, what family, medical, personal situations they might have going on if we have access to that information, if they have any behavioral tendencies, their social economic background. That is information that you can leverage to create a more fair classroom management system. Because once you know your students' limitations and their areas that they'll need scaffolded and support with, then you can say that you took your students' needs into account, and then invite them to co-create with you to create some classroom policies and procedures that they would consider to be fair given their starting point. Out of all the activities and assignments that you'll ever do with your class, this is probably one of the most important ones, and that is taking the time to allow students to have input on the classroom guidelines. So one of the activities that I never skip out on is creating a chart where I actually ask my students, what do they want and expect out of their fellow peers? And then as a class, we come together and create a class contract. So we create a summary, if you will, of what most of the class requested that their classmates behave like, act like, treat each other like. Following and listening and adhering to their feedback is important, because if they see that you make a conscientious effort to take their feedback into consideration, that builds trust with your class, and that makes them more amenable to also please you and follow the rules and follow the class procedures and genuinely try their best. They are intrinsically motivated to try their best. Now, in creating your management system, you also want to create opportunities where your students collaborate as a group to obtain class rewards. Now, your opinion of this might vary from teacher to teacher, but in over a decade of teaching, I have found this to be a quite successful practice that not only my students enjoy, but it really helps to build positive relationships and reduce instances of bullying or friction or miscommunication in my class, because students are constantly needing to work together throughout the school year for incentives. Misunderstandings and lack of communication about needs and expectations are what create conflict in our classroom. So in order to amend that and take preventative, proactive measures instead of reactive measures, is understanding that communication about our needs, about our expectations, and having a good enough relationship in order to keep that communication going is vital if we want to have a stressless, peaceful, amicable work setting for us, and also learning setting for our students. It's so important that you model for your students how to communicate your needs, your frustrations amicably, calmly, respectfully. Because remember, as the educator, as the adult in the classroom, your behavior and your energy is going to set the tone for how students will reciprocate that energy back to you. By modeling a healthy conflict resolution, you are empowering your students to also learn how to amicably and calmly resolve conflicts with their peers. If you found this video helpful, allow me to recommend I Lied to My Students and It Made Them Smarter. And this is a video about how you can support your students in shifting their self-perception so that it can improve their self-esteem, their self-worth, and as a byproduct, their behavior and their performance in your class. I'll also be sharing the I Hate School transformation, and I'll link that up above and down below so that you can watch at the end of this video. And this video is about how you can approach students that are apathetic about school and how to patiently support them through a change in perception. Don't forget that my virtual door is always open at Teach Like an Influencer down below, where you can check out personalized support and solutions that I offer. You're an amazing teacher. You are the secret sauce, and I hope you have an amazing day. Until next time, class dismissed.